Lemonade Original.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Lemonade's Driving Brand Growth podcast. It's where we break down the tips, tricks, and strategy behind successful marketing. We thank you for watching, listening, or maybe reading us today. I'm joined by Maria Juan, VP of Marketing and Communications at Peerfit, an amazing company redefining wellness and fitness experiences for corporations. Maria, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I ask you some of the questions I have, I'm curious, how are you staying fit during isolation?
Yes. That's definitely been tough to stay motivated. Luckily for us, we also use our own products. So Peerfit provides credits so that we can attend fitness classes. And a lot of our fitness partners are offering Zoom classes and at-home classes. So I'm definitely taking advantage of that and trying to keep up with some virtual streaming fitness classes pretty regularly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people who've said that they're maybe even doing more exercise during this time than they were before, because it's like they're getting up every day in front of the computer, like they kind of have to do it. It's right there. I'm going to log on. It's scheduled. It's on my calendar.
The barriers have definitely lessened. You can't use the excuse of, oh, well, there's traffic or I'm not going to make it. It's like
That's
you
true.
just have to roll out of bed and put on your sneakers, maybe not even that sometimes to take a class. So yeah, it's very hard to make excuses now. So just blame the kids. That's what I always do.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned you've got not a brand new baby, but I'm sure that keeps you fit, chasing the kids around as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're climbing the walls, so they can't wait to get back to school for sure.
Yeah, what is that like? I mean, I can't imagine that sort of plight right now, deciding, how to handle that. I mean, your kids are young, right? So not quite dealing with
Yes.
school yet, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad I don't have to, props to all the parents out there that are having to be homeschoolers as well as full-time employees and workers. That for me, I definitely don't have to do. But you still want to try and keep them smart. You can't turn the TV on and, have Daniel Tiger teach them everything. But that's definitely been just a challenge, I think, for all parents in general. It's how do you keep your kids, not necessarily trying to make sure they keep up with all their schooling, but, just keeping them entertained and keeping them, motivated to do other things all day long. That's been the most challenging thing, I think. So.
I imagine. Is there anything else that for you has been kind of a vice or a point of entertainment or motivation during this time? Just curious.
Oh man, I mean, for me, I think a lot of it's just trying to pick up other habits that maybe I haven't gotten a chance to do in the past. So now that you're home more and you're not going out more, I used to read a lot and now I find myself kind of going back to that. And it's been really nice to go back to things that that I used to do a lot more before I had the kids and before I was working all the time. Because now that I'm not going anywhere, it's like, oh, I've got to find other ways to entertain myself and to just kind of continue to feed myself too in that way. And so that's just been really nice to kind of pick up on some of those old habits that were really invigorating for myself at the time. So
that's great. Yeah, because it's so easy to pick up on a bunch of bad habits right now too.
Yes, pantry is always stocked. Definitely snacking. So that's definitely a bad one.
The COVID eating is hard to avoid. Yes. All right. Well, we'll get into some meaty stuff, no pun intended. But before we get into Peerfit, I'm curious to ask you a little bit more about kind of your journey into marketing and learning how you kind of came to be where you are today, because I always like to hear those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm pretty unique, but I think a lot of marketers have really unique stories. I always love to hear how marketers get into marketing. And for me, I have a dance degree. So I graduated from the University of South Florida, go Bulls, and with a dance degree. And so I thought I was going to travel the world and do just tons of dancing in beautiful theaters. And I did get to do a lot of that, but unfortunately that doesn't pay the bills. So I started doing some stuff on the side for a lot of the companies that I was working for and dancing with, to kind of help supplement the work that I was doing for them on stage. So I was going back into the administrative office and saying, hey, how can I help you all out? Just because, I want to be able to help you all out, right? Because a lot of dance companies are nonprofit. So I started doing marketing on the side for them. And it was as simple as doing things like social media and videography, and press and communications, and getting them published and in different publications and reviewed. And it started to just really pique my interest. Like, I just loved the creativity behind it. And I just could see myself doing that full time when I was ready to kind of hang up my dancing shoes. And even though you're always an artist, your life definitely changes and it shifts and priority shifts. So it was just a natural progression for me to go full-time marketer when I was ready to do that. And it was already part of my life. So it was a really wonderful find along the way. So
I love that. And I think that's interesting too, because every time you hear a story like that, you're kind of like, that's interesting. So what, what pieces of that prepared you to be, a good marketer? And you can see, well, being sort of agile and understanding sort of, creativity and motion and things that, are part of dance, have a lot to do with, not just from a symbolism point of view within marketing, but just from understanding just kind of the ebbs and flows of markets and customers and how to really balance things. But what are some of the things that you've taken from your background, and it doesn't just have to be dance, I'm just calling that out, but that you feel really prepared you or made you a better marketer or made you better able to understand the needs of your customers or your customers at this point?
Yeah, I think all marketers need to be scrappy, right? They've got to be willing to really kind of dig deep and do their own research and really figure out kind of ways to either address challenges and find solutions really quickly and efficiently. And so I think that's a big part of just my personality, and I think a lot of marketers' personalities, right? So I think that was something that I definitely took, and that's huge in the arts world as well, because we're always scraping by on very little resources. And so I think you'll find a lot of artists that are very scrappy in the way that they do things. And I think, definitely empathy and sympathy, right? For our audience, whether that be from the stage to the audience sitting in front of us or our end user or our customer. It's really figuring out what do they need, what do they want to see, what do they want to hear from us, and figuring out how to deliver that in a really meaningful way. I think that is marketing at its core, and that is performing at its core, and that is the arts at its core, and that could be life at its core, right? So I think if you can really tap into those elements of your personality and of yourself, then you can be a really successful marketer.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because your experience connecting with audiences, and my wife did dance too, so I know that's a big piece of what she loved about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's so much about what marketing is less about we need to do this thing here on this channel. I mean, that's all part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But understanding who you're trying to connect with and really making that emotional, authentic connection is really what makes the difference, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that costs a lot of money. Sometimes that's really small, and sometimes it's easy to get distracted by it needing to be this big thing or this small thing or whatever. But at its core, it's got to have that piece of it, right?
Absolutely. The channels that we use are just the mechanisms, right, to get there. But at the end of the day, it's that path that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, definitely. So what have you seen be sort of the catalyst in connecting with that audience for Peerfit? How have you guys grown into the company you are today? I know you've had some good growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is something my CEO, Ed, this is something he says all the time. At the end of the day, we're trying to solve a problem, right, for users. And it started off as asking people, hey, they wanted to just be able to hop around to different studios to try different things, right? That's how Peerfit started, right? And that's a pretty similar model to what a lot of fitness companies may have. It's like, hey, you want to be able to hop around to different studios or follow instructors who work at different places. Well, now it's evolved into who should really be providing the resources to keeping people fit and healthy, right? It's, should I be paying out of my own pocket, or should my employer who wants to keep me healthy and coming to work every day, should they be paying for that? And then even on top of that, should my health insurance company also be providing the benefit, because that will help lower premiums and lower costs for them. So it just really snowballed into what Peerfit is today. And it just started off with, Ed saying, hey, I want to just solve this one problem. Even though it seems insignificant, it would be very significant for this one individual who wants to come and take my classes at all the different studios that I teach at. Right. And so
Okay.
I think that's where Peerfit has grown to, and why we've seen such great growth, because as we've evolved and as people's needs evolved, we've all kind of done this growth together.
So at first it was just about sort of the activity of saying, hey, we want to provide access to multiple activities. And then it became, from the customer's point of view, who should actually be allowing me that access? Not that, well, that access is there regardless. Who should pay for it? And that being a barrier, right? Because it's always a barrier, whether it's $5 or $500.
Right.
It's always going to be a reason, like you said. And fitness is one of those things that's really easy to find a reason not to do it.
Right. And I think maybe I got too granular with it by saying who's going to pay for it. Maybe what I should have said is who's going to benefit from it. It's not just the end user, but my employer will benefit from it because I will be healthier and I will be a more productive employee for them, and so on and so forth. So I think at the end of the day, it should be who's going to be benefiting from it, and we should all be contributing to this benefit, for the end user.
It's huge. Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, a lot of the successful models that we see, especially outside of the, it seems like our market, for health seem to be those that have really taken stock in their employees' health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Controversial things like work week and the length of it and all of those things, but there's a lot of work into studies into seeing how successful that is, right? Seeing that, maybe you don't need to do something just because it's the table stakes everyone says you have to do. Maybe you can achieve more with less time, or maybe you can achieve more with giving people more coverage because they're going to cost you less from an insurance carrier's point of view. And those are nasty things to talk about, but they're real. And at the end of the day, that means that your premium costs less. And these are actual benefits that come back to you. But then like the actual health benefits, after you get around talking about all the money and all the things that people don't like to talk about, what you're solving for, because you guys are solving all of those mechanics, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you're really solving for is that end result, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What have you seen on the results side of it? So and maybe we break it down into people and employees versus companies, and even insurance companies. I don't know if you break it down into 2 or 3 categories, or how you sort of have monitored that, but I'm sure that's got to be a way you address it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for us, one of the main ways that we address it is by direct testimonial and direct feedback, right? We want to hear from the end user and hear from our clients, telling us that, hey, this is a successful program. It's a lot harder for a lot of companies to do a comparison of us to maybe something they've had in the past, because a lot of people probably didn't have anything, right? So we could be the first thing that they're implementing. And just in that alone, they're like,
I've never had access to anything like that.
Yeah. And so it could just be them checking a box, which at the end of the day, that's an improvement, right? Even if it's just simple as saying, hey, I marked this off the to-do list, or I was able to provide this as a benefit, that's a step in the right direction. And I think as wellness becomes more of a hot topic and as more of a driving force for employees, because now we're seeing that subject come up more and more now that people are realizing that they're working from home and they're working a lot, and they're trying to think of how to stay healthy and keep their wellness at the forefront. I think we are going to see a lot more statistics and analytics coming out of these programs, because the employees are now speaking up that they want and need something like this now that they're not going to an office every day.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's interesting, and I think that I was just talking to someone yesterday about the bold idea of actually talking to your customers, your consumers, which is happening more now during COVID, and it's funny that it's taking kind of that to get brands to really reach out. But it sounds like you guys have been doing that for a while because you need that real one-to-one connection to know, is this making a difference in your life? Is this really something you're valuing? Are you using it, right? Because you can put a bunch of fancy, things in place and so you have access to this stuff. But how do you actually, find out if there's good adoption, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so we definitely take a look at our analytics. Like we can take a look at registration numbers versus active or engagement numbers, per client, per employer. And so we take a look at all of that in addition to sending out surveys and gathering testimonials and feedback from there as well. Obviously, social media is also huge. People love to be able to chat with us and just tell us a little bit or provide suggestions. So we take kind of all of those elements and bring them together to continue to provide that, to continue to have that feedback loop between us and our clients and our carriers and basically everyone that's in the process, all the stakeholders, so that we're continuing to look at that. So we're huge in analytics, of course, because that's really what people want to know about, right? Is this working? Is the program really providing the benefit that they want it to at the end of the day?
Right. And I mean, what are some of those, just like tangibly breaking them down, if I was a company investing in this, what are the benefits that I'm looking for? Is it, less time out of work, from sick employees? Is it just more productivity? How should I quantify this?
So I think every employer is going to be different, and the ones that want to get down to the granularity that you're talking about, which is productivity, employee productivity, and kind of measuring sick days, they've got to be willing to put that work into it to be able to provide, right? But I think at the end of the day, it could be as simple as an employer saying, "I just want to know that people are using the benefit," and we can say, "Hey, check. This is how many registrations you have, and this is how many classes people have taken this month, and this is where they're going, and these are their favorite classes." Like we can break it down to that, as detailed as how people are using the Peerfit benefit. And then from there, if they want to take it that step further and start comparing it to that's where they're really going to start to see that benefit, provided into kind of the health insurance claims and things like that. So.
But I think that's better, to your point, because every company's going to have regular medical insurance, but to that point, you never really know those benefits, right? I mean, because you're always going to have people who really use their insurance, right, and have medical issues, and then people who are like, I have to pay for this thing that I never use because people who never go to the doctor and never really need anything. And so I can understand the frustration from people on that side of it. But having access to things like this that are fulfilling and that are more tangible and that are not, I have to get these checkups, I have to do these things, I have to check those boxes medically, seems so much more rewarding, and ultimately that it's going to have a much more long-term effect than, here's this problem I have to solve medically right now. I mean, you need both, right? But I can see how much more of a sort of ripple effect this can have.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think they can take the data that we provide them on a monthly basis and they can use that however they see best. We're providing them with essentially as much data as we can pull from our records. They can combine it with what they've got. And I think they've got a really good kind of analytical view of their wellness program and of their benefits packages, as a whole.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what's been your approach to get the word out about this? Let's talk about marketing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know you mentioned this pivot, from kind of how you originally started, and I'd love to understand that a little bit more from the marketing and marketer's perspective.
Sure. Yeah. So I think for us, we work really hand in hand with our sales team who are they're really focused on outbound relationships and networking. And so we're trying to figure out basically they're going from top down. So as a marketing team, we look at things from the bottom up, right? So if we can drive conversation and build evangelists and, build conversation and kind of start to build that from the ground up from the end user, and our
Mm.
team and our sales team is working from the top down, from the
Oh,
carriers,
interesting.
for the basically who pays for the benefit. At some point, we're going to meet in the middle. And I think that's how we've been able to be so successful is we work really hand in hand with our sales team on those strategies.
That's kind of magical. I haven't really heard that strategy before. So
Don't
you're
tell anyone. That's a secret sauce.
No, that's great. I mean, the top down, strategy from the sales team makes plenty of sense, and that's going to take time to get to the right people. But by the time they get there, if they've heard your name, if they've got employees who are saying, "Yes, I would love Peerfit," or "Yes, I would love a service like this," even if they don't remember the name, you know, um, any level of that
Right.
is going to increase your chances of finding a great partner.
Yeah.
And I'd have to assume it's more about a partner, a long term
Yeah.
relationship for you
Absolutely.
guys. It's not transactional.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're looking for people who want to really invest in something like this and invest in a program like this, and that's going to take an investment from their end, right, to really start to see those results.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone's looking at and putting a program like this into play, it definitely is going to be an investment on their end.
Right. Right. And I mean, it seems like it's just the good thing, right? Is it? I mean, I guess I'd ask you this. From my perspective, it seems like it's becoming more and more table stakes that you have to invest in these things, even as a small company. But as you become bigger, it becomes just sort of automatic. But how do you? Here's my question. To think about it. How do you educate, a potential partner, a potential client in really making the right decision? Because I'm sure there are plenty employee wellness programs, some better than others. Of course, you have your opinion on that. But, some are going to focus on diet, some are going to focus on exercise, some are going to focus on something that might give you access to something you never use. How do you feel that that education process goes? Because I always feel like that's such a big part of, like, for us when we're consulting someone, we always want to give them the education so that if we're
Sure.
not the right fit, they have those answers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you said it right there. It's an educational process. I think, as you said, there's a lot of people who do wellness. They do, programs like this, and I think providing that comparison is really important because not everyone's going to necessarily want to work with us, and that's okay. But they still should look at finding something to implement because it's important for their employees, right? And so I think at the end of the day, doing your research and really finding out and doing your comparisons is a really great way to look into that. Of course, we're going to provide the best outlook because we think the best product. And the way we look at it is, we don't sell fitness, we sell an employee engagement tool. And I think at the end of the day, that's what a lot of these companies are looking for. They're looking at ways to engage their employees with a benefit that's going to excite them, right? And if that's what they need to be looking for, and we're able to provide that. So I think that's a big part of why we've been so successful.
I love that. And I want to get into the sort of bottom up approach a little bit more from a marketing perspective. So how do you do that? How do you start to find those evangelists in a
Yeah.
partner you haven't attained yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it starts with content, right? This is huge and it's such an investment to invest in really great content. And I'm talking content from every aspect, right? Social, communications, PR, long form content like blogs, right? It's got to be something that you really invest in because that's where you're really going to start to see the pickup in people really learning more and more about your organization. And I think that was huge for us. We really focused on that, especially in 2019, is really focusing on what was being pushed out externally to different channels. And we were starting to see lots of pickup from that, right? And so when that that started to happen, we really started to see the benefits and started to see that growth coming from that.
That's great. And so you're seeing people sort of latch onto it as, oh, this is amazing. This is something that I should tell my employer about. Then they become those sort of internal
Yeah,
champions, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the only other place I've really heard about things like that is, within like tech or IT or something,
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
you're like at the end of the day, the CEO's the check writer in that scenario, but the IT group's got to be on board, or the people
Yeah,
using it got to be on board. It makes a lot of sense. The people using it every day are the employees.
yeah, absolutely.
And so trying to sell that into the hearts and the minds of, I mean, all due respect, yeah, the leadership team would use it too, but they're maybe less connected to that sort of ground level. So that
Employee.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then is there a different strategy from marketing perspective for top down, or is that just pure relationship based for a sales team?
No, I mean, we are definitely big proponents of inbound lead gen marketing. I think, it's called so many things nowadays. I hear demand gen and lead gen and account-based marketing, but
I
at the
know.
end of the day, it's driving leads, right?
Yeah.
However we do it, and that's a big part of that. So and even then, even social is part of that. Like, we've got our sales team, they're all very active on social media, specifically LinkedIn, because that's where their prospects live and breathe.
Yep.
And so it's definitely really important for even them to be pushing out content, especially now because they can't leave their home offices, right? When they're so used to being outbound. And so it's a lot of just lead gen tactics and inbound marketing that's coming in. So that's really just getting back to the nitty gritty of kind of, lead gen marketing, right? That's where we're really working with them on that.
I love that. And is your sales team doing like thought leadership type content, or
Yeah.
presenting it from the team, about reposting, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely have opportunities for our sales team to provide guest blogging for our
Oh,
blog.
that's
So
great.
that is opportunities for them to continuously share out content. We're constantly trying to find opportunities, especially now for podcast guesting and, webinar presentations, now that those are huge. Like, so we're just trying to find opportunities to continuing to push out content in whichever form we can find it in, not just owned, but earned, right? And so that's really part of our strategy right now.
I love that. And I've been personally a huge proponent of LinkedIn for a while before it
Mhm.
was cool. And I think it's definitely a huge tool,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
for this. And organic reach is so big there, and it's just the right place to be for so
Mhm.
many businesses. Um, Granted, every channel is not right for everybody,
Right,
but
right.
it makes a lot of sense because it's such a focused conversation.
Mhm.
And everybody seems to be there for the right reasons, and content's become such a big piece of it now.
Absolutely.
It's grown up so much on the
Yeah.
platform.
I
Um,
think I see the benefit that LinkedIn is providing now, because I feel like the other channels have become a little bit noisy,
yeah,
right? And so LinkedIn has stuck with what they do, right? That's a place for professionals to network and not even sell, right? Because anytime when someone tries to sell me on LinkedIn, I'm kind of like, this is not really the place for that. It's a place for networking, right? And they've been able to, I think now they're really starting to see how keeping with that focus for their brand is really paying off for them now, because it's really become a great channel for a lot of different reasons.
exactly. And that's really the name of the game for any channel, right? Is just
Mhm.
understanding how to properly use it. Instagram has a purpose, TikTok has a purpose for certain brands. LinkedIn has a purpose. Everything has its place. You don't necessarily have to be everywhere, and I think a lot of
Right.
brands get distracted by that too, right? Oh no, we have to be on TikTok because it's hot right now. Maybe
Yes.
not right now. That's a little tough decision. But
Yeah.
if you're not serving a Generation Z market, then
Right.
don't worry about it, right?
Agree. Agree.
And also, if you can't do it well, don't do it yet.
Yes.
If you can't
Exactly.
commit to it. Same thing with LinkedIn. Is you have to be consistent. You have to have volume there in order for
Mhm.
people to recognize that you're part of the community. And so I really appreciate that focus on content and education, because that's really what I would see this sort of a conversation needing.
Yeah.
There's so much clutter out there in this kind of a conversation, but it's hot, right? Everybody is really focused on self-care and understanding how they can take better care of themselves, and so it's really nice to see that shift.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure,
Agree.
definitely. And I'm curious, has the shift to everything being digital at the moment, with COVID, affected you guys in a good way, in a bad way? Were you kind of already doing that?
Mhm.
It's a big question for everybody, but
Yeah, I mean, we luckily already had digital streaming services as part of our product, right? We partner with some great streaming services, and so we had it already ingrained in our product. But of course, the driving force of our product was in studio classes, right? In studio classes and gym memberships, and so for us, it was more of not necessarily having to build anything out because the product was already there. It was just kind of reminding people like, hey, we know you can't go to your in studio classes. Don't forget you've got this option right here as well. So there was just kind of like directing them to someplace else where they had an opportunity to continue with their fitness journey. And then of course, once studios started offering Zoom classes and virtual classes, we were able to integrate that into our platform as well.
yeah, that's great. Being ahead of it is a big deal, and you're seeing that right now where there's brands that are scrambling,
Mm-hmm.
and I still appreciate ones that are still making the shift,
Yeah.
because there's ones that still aren't. um,
Yeah.
but then, ones that like yourself who are already ready for it, knowing that there's just behavior differences. Certain people are going to use things in different ways, is a big game changer and difference maker for a situation like this, where you can't predict these behavior shifts and these market shifts. You just have to be ready for them. You
Yeah.
have to have those options for people to engage in the way that they want to, and making fitness really available to people in multiple ways makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there sort of a future evolution of Peerfit where you see more digital content because of this, or has that just happened naturally with all the studios offering more of it?
Yeah, I think we're going to see when and if things start to settle down. I think we're going to see digital's definitely not going anywhere because I think
Right.
people are building those habits and they're starting to realize, hey, I can keep this up pretty regularly. I myself am one of those individuals that didn't really have a steady fitness habit before because it was hard for me to keep a schedule. And now that I'm home and I've got all these virtual offerings available to me, I'm pretty steady now. So I don't know if I see myself going back to the studio with regularity because I just have so many things at my fingertips.
It's
And
easier
so
to put it on the calendar now, like a meeting.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's always been on the calendar, but it was easy to ignore
Yeah.
before, right? Because
Yeah.
it was like I have to jump in the car and I work a lot. And so I was always making excuses. But I think what we're gonna see now is we're gonna see just a division between both, that they're gonna share it, right? I think when we surveyed our users said that they're gonna continue doing virtual offerings even when they go back to their studio. They want to be able to have that as an option. So for our fitness partners out there, I would say, hey, don't give up on these virtual classes just yet or ever, because it definitely can be an easy revenue stream for you all while you may not be able to get back to full capacity or provide a full schedule, right?
Right.
And so I think they should definitely kind of have it as another potential revenue stream for them, because every Zoom class that I'm joining lately has been, upwards of 20 people, which a lot of times some of these small boutique studios can't even fit that. So I
That's
think
a good point.
there's a big opportunity here for a lot of fitness partners to continue with virtual offerings.
Yeah, I mean, actually get more growth than they would, just because they physically can't get that capacity. And, you know, with it being historically such a brick and mortar business for a studio
Mhm.
or a gym, who are, I would be freaking out right now, being able to say, wow, I can actually maybe even do better in this scenario,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Yeah.
still have these situations where it's very targeted and people really look forward to that opportunity to come in person, but it doesn't have to be part of their everyday.
Right.
um,
Right.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all I have for you. I don't know if you have any questions for me. I've been asking a lot.
Oh, no, I mean, this is a two-way podcast. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you come prepared?
I did not, but I know, I think it's great. I mean, I think what I would love to just hear a little bit from your perspective on what I'm seeing a lot right now with a lot of marketers is everyone's moving into kind of podcast webinar, and I love it.
Yeah,
It's so great to just see another form of content. So I mean, I think for you, it'd be really great just to talk a little bit about, how you kind of got the podcast up and running.
totally.
Was there a big lift involved, and kind of how did you choose? I think a big part of, what I always look at, because we would love to implement something like this for Peerfit, is like, what kind of audience did you kind of choose that you wanted to focus on, and how is that helping kind of the business as a whole?
Definitely. No, I think getting it going was we wanted to do it for over a year, maybe even more. So it's just been sort of that back burner, like when are we going to get it going, And after kind of COVID hit and everything, it was just like, now that the barrier to do this is less from a production standpoint, it's acceptable to just have Zoom conversations, maybe now is just the time. I mean, yeah, I have a little bit more equipment and stuff because I geeked out on that, but it's not required, right?
Right.
And I still don't even have as much as a lot of, really pro podcasters have. So I think it's easy to get really distracted by that stuff.
Yeah.
And right now, you don't have to do video too. I do it because we're a content company as well as an agency. So kind of had to do video, but audio only is fine. There's plenty of ways to do that. Zoom is probably just the easiest. I would say like start there, my first couple were just Zoom. And, really it was more about saying, what do we want to do with it? And it was kind of the way I approached LinkedIn, which was, we really just want to have good conversations with people, build our network. Yes, we assume that at some point that will lead to growth of the company and sales and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it's more about going into it without that approach and knowing that good things will come over time if you have the right intent. And it's definitely been rewarding in that way, in that, we've tried to focus on a wide range of people because we serve a wide range of customers as it is. Really just focusing on talking to marketers like yourself, from diverse backgrounds, from diverse companies, and just kind of conversationally, what's going on? What is everybody up to? What's working? What's not? Answering these tough questions, because what I was seeing is just as things started to really get scary, everybody's kind of going inward and, pulling all their ad spends and not sure what to do. And, if you look historically at the companies that really make it out of situations like this, it's the ones that don't do that. It's the ones that, if they can afford to, still stay active, stay on the plan, marketing 101, like there's still certain things that will always work. It's going to be changing and you have to adjust stuff during this. Yeah. And so I felt like the podcast was an opportunity to kind of have these really motivational conversations, really, for other people who are scared and not sure what to do. And really just sort of bring that sort of tactical and motivational conversation to other folks out there to say, here are some tips and tricks. Here's what other people are going through. You're not the only one. Let's keep pushing. We're going to get through this. It will obviously become something different when all of this changes, but I honestly think it will still be a very similar conversation. And the goal was just, let's use our biggest channel, which is LinkedIn. Let's share this with our diverse group of professionals in marketing and advertising and brand, and hopefully this helps.
Yeah.
And so far it's been as simple as that. Now it does take some work.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I have some help, from our team, to, put the content together, to edit the content, to promote the content, because you want to get the most out of it. And if you're going to invest your time, the way that you're investing your time, want you to get something out of it, and that promotion, that awareness is really important. So yeah, I think like anything, you do have to understand it's going to take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great.
And then I also, sharing a horror story, I invested time in recording probably 6 or 7 podcasts that all got deleted, which is embarrassing. But the platform we were using deleted everything after 7 days and didn't tell anybody. So by the time we went to go edit all of them, they were all gone. So
that must have been a fun phone
learning
call.
curve. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But, still here.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man.
But you should do it. You should definitely do it.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. I think it sounds like a great opportunity. And I think, I think it's just another way to continue to building content. And you can never go wrong with that.
I mean, to me, like if I was wanting to see something, it'd be more on the education front, like what's going through the mind of someone, who's on the side of the customer, who's enjoying your content and your classes, but also, from a marketing and business owner perspective, how did they make a decision on this kind of stuff,
Yeah, absolutely.
and what are some of the things going on in healthcare that kind of tangentially affect this, because they are in the same family, probably not quite related in the same way. And I don't know the answer to that. Right. So I'm curious about it.
Yeah.
So those are all things that you could educate people on.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
I would love to see those. So
Yeah.
Let me know when you have it.
It'll be ready next week. Yep. I'm right on top of that, Rose.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. Cool. Well, this was really great. I think I've been telling everybody, like, let's check in 6 months, and see if the world's changed. And
I love that idea. Going. I love that idea. That's episode 2.
Yes,
that we'll get to it in 6 months.
I'm going to do an episode 2 with everybody.
I like that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Well, have a fantastic rest of your day, and thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Trevor.
Lemonade Original.